A resident of the Upper East Side saw her exclusive handicapped parking spot stolen by her arrogant neighbor. What she didn't expect? My husband is an FBI agent. A 9-month battle that transformed an entire building, revealing secrets of a retired judge and changing lives forever. A story of resistance, dignity, and redemption that will make you rethink your own rights. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Have you ever had to swallow a huge bitter pill? I have. And it wasn't just any pill. It was the gourmet toad with arrogant sauce served by my daughter-in-law, the evil princess who decided to turn my life into a low-budget reality show. Hold on, let's take it step by step. My name is Helen, I'm 72 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was a retired woman living peacefully in the house I built with a lot of sweat alongside my late husband. 4 bedrooms, a flowery backyard that was the envy of the neighborhood, and memories of 43 years of marriage in every square inch. But as my late grandmother would say, may God rest her soul, life is like a box of chocolates, except sometimes it comes with spiders inside. It all started when my son Richard announced he was marrying Patricia, a 29-year-old digital influencer he met on a dating app. Do you know what a digital influencer is? I didn't either. Apparently, it's someone who makes money by showing their life on social media. And what a life, my friends. A life of expensive makeup, international travel, and revolutionary products she swore would transform her skin, her hair, her gut, and even her soul. I swallowed my suspicion with a smile. After all, who am I to judge? If my son was happy, I would be too. At the wedding, I made sure to wear my most beautiful pearl set, a gift from my late husband. I gave an emotional speech about love and its twists and turns. I cried as if there were no tomorrow. I hugged my daughter-in-law and whispered in her ear, "Welcome to the family." She smiled, hugged me back, and said I was simply a dear. At that moment, I thought maybe my suspicion was just the prejudice of an outdated old woman. 3 months after the wedding, I received a call from my dear son. "Mom, we have problems with the apartment. A leak destroyed everything. Can we stay at your house for a few weeks until we sort things out?" As any mother would, I opened the doors of my home and my heart. I prepared the guest room, did the cleaning my back allowed, put fresh flowers in the vases, and even bought that expensive Belgian chocolate Patricia loved so much. They arrived on a Friday night with 17 suitcases. I'm not exaggerating. 17. As if they were moving to Antarctica for 5 years, Patricia came in assessing every corner of my house with those hawk eyes looking for prey. What a charming house, Helen. It has such a vintage style. Vintage. My 43-year-old house, meticulously cared for, was vintage, as if it were a walking antique shop. I took a deep breath and thanked her for the compliment. It was just the beginning. The next day, I woke up early as usual. 6 in the morning had always been my sacred time to have coffee on the porch, watering my plants and planning the day. But that morning, I found a revolution in my kitchen. All my appliances had been rearranged. My coffee maker, which always sat on the right corner near the window, was now on the other side. My spice jars, organized alphabetically for decades, were completely mixed up. And in the middle of the table, a strange device that looked like a spaceship. "It's my superfood processor," Patricia explained, appearing in the kitchen wearing a yoga outfit that cost more than my monthly pension. "I make my detox smoothie every morning. I hope you don't mind that I rearranged things a little bit. Your setup wasn't aligned with the house's feng shui." Feng shui of my house. The house I decorated, cleaned, and loved for over 4 decades needed feng shui. I swallowed hard and smiled. "Of course, dear. Make yourself at home." I lied, and how I lied. On the 3rd day, all my hand-embroidered bath towels, inherited from my mother, had disappeared. In their place, bland white towels that looked like they belonged in a hotel. Yours were shedding lint, Helen. They aren't hypoallergenic. Richard has allergies, you know. No, I didn't know that my son, who grew up wrapped in those towels, had suddenly developed an allergy to them. In the first week, my cast-iron pans, companions of so many Sunday lunches, were replaced by ceramic pans that don't release toxins. My traditional cleaning products gave way to lavender-scented sprays that cost an arm and a leg. My laundry detergent, which always left clothes with that clean smell I loved so much, was thrown away because It contains carcinogenic components. And worst of all, my reading nook in the living room with my 30-year-old armchair that perfectly molded to my body was turned into a recording space for Patricia's videos. A word of warning: when you let an octopus into your house, don't complain when it starts rummaging through all the cabinets with its 8 intrusive tentacles. I became a stranger in my own home, an unwelcome visitor who had to ask permission to open the refrigerator. I started having my breakfast locked in my room to avoid hearing the unsolicited advice about how sugar was slowly killing me. I started avoiding the living room because it became a recording studio with blinding lights and a ring light that made me look like a pale ghost when I walked by. A month passed, then 2. The leak in their apartment seemed to have turned the entire property into the Titanic after the iceberg. There was no prediction of their return, and I, with my soft spot of a mother and grandmother, yes, they made me a grandmother to a Shih Tzu dog named Zeus who peed on my Persian rugs, couldn't put an end to that situation. It was on a Tuesday that everything changed. I was in my room, the last refuge I had left, when I heard strange noises in the attic. My precious attic where I kept all the memories of my life, my wedding dress, Richard's toys, my husband's letters, the family albums. I climbed the stairs, as fast as my 72-year-old legs allowed, and found Patricia rummaging through boxes, throwing photos and objects into a pile in the corner. "What are you doing?" I asked, feeling my heart race dangerously. "Oh, Helen, good thing you're here. I'm doing an object detox. I read a wonderful book about minimalism, and we've decided to donate all these things that just accumulate dust and negative energy." Looked at the pile. On top was my wedding album. Underneath, Richard's first pacifier. Beside it, the box with the letters I exchanged with my husband when he traveled for work. Further down, my son's school notebooks, which I kept like treasures. Something snapped inside me. It was as if a volcano dormant for 72 years had finally erupted. I felt my face burn, my hands tremble, and my voice, normally sweet and controlled, transformed into something I didn't even recognize. "Enough!" I yelled for the first time in decades. "Enough!" Patricia looked at me as if I had 2 heads. "Helen, are you okay? Do you need a sedative? I have some lavender drops that—" "What I need," I interrupted, "is for you to take your hands off my memories. What I need is for you to respect my home, my history, and my life. What I need is for you to understand that just because I have wrinkles doesn't mean I'm invisible or incapable." I picked up the wedding album and clutched it to my chest. This album has the last photographic record of my father before he died of cancer. This wedding dress was embroidered by my grandmother, who crossed the ocean fleeing war. These toys of Richard's are the last things my husband bought for him before the accident that took him from us. My tears streamed uncontrollably, but for the first time they weren't tears of conformity. They were tears of indignation, of a fury held back for months. "You are no longer welcome in my home," I declared, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "You have 1 week to find another place." That night, Richard tried to convince me to change my mind. He sat on the edge of my bed with that abandoned puppy look that had always worked on me. "Mom, Patricia didn't mean any harm. She's just trying to help, to modernize things. You need to be a little more open to change." I looked at my son, the boy I raised alone after his father's death, whom I fed with the sweat of my labor as a teacher, whom I defended against everything and everyone. And for the first time I saw a stranger in him, a man who allowed his wife to treat his own mother with disrespect. "Richard," I said calmly, "I've been open to change my whole life. I moved cities 4 times to follow your father's opportunities. I changed my career to be able to give you attention when you were little. I changed my retirement plans to help pay for your college. I changed my entire life when your father died, learning to live alone. What I will not change is my right to be respected in my own home." He left the room, slamming the door just like he did as a teenager. During the following week, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Patricia avoided looking me in the eye, and Richard alternated between attempts at emotional manipulation and long accusatory silences. But I didn't back down. On the 6th day, when I returned from the grocery store, I found the house empty. They had taken all 17 suitcases, and even the dog. No note, no goodbye. Just a strangely silent house and objects out of place. I sat in my armchair, which had returned to the reading nook, and cried. I cried from sadness over the distance from my son, but I also cried from relief, from liberation, from silent victory. In the following weeks, I reclaimed my home inch by inch. I returned my cast iron pans to the stove, reorganized my spices alphabetically, rescued my embroidered towels from the back of a closet where they had been hidden. I went back to having my coffee on the porch every morning, listening to the birds without the interruption of the detox blender noise. 2 months passed without news from Richard. Deep down, I missed him with a physical ache. But there was also a new feeling growing within me. Pride. Pride in having stood my ground, in having defended my space, my history, my dignity. On Sunday afternoons, when the silence became too heavy, I started frequenting a book club at the municipal library. It was there that I met Margaret, Dorothy, Josephine and Odette, 4 women my age with life stories as rich and complex as mine. Margaret had kicked her alcoholic son out after 15 years of codependency. Dorothy had just divorced at 68 after discovering an affair. Josephine was learning to dance tango after caring for her husband with Alzheimer's for a decade. And Odette had sold everything and was planning a solo trip through Latin America. "We only get wrinkles on our face when there's no more room to keep them in our heart," Odette once said, as we discussed a novel about a woman reinventing her life after 60. That phrase stuck with me. It was Margaret who suggested I start writing. "You have a way with words, Helen, and a story that deserves to be told." I started timidly, with small texts about my experiences, about what it's like to be made invisible after 70, about how people automatically lower their voices when they speak to us, as if hearing were the first thing to deteriorate, about how we are treated like children without the autonomy to make decisions about our own lives. Odette, the most tech-savvy among us, suggested I create a blog. I laughed at the idea. Me, a 72-year-old woman who barely knew how to use a cell phone, writing on the internet? It seemed absurd, but Odette didn't accept my resistance. Age is just a number on a document. Don't let it define you. With her help, I created my first blog. Confessions of an Invisible Woman, I called it. My first post told the story of Patricia's invasion of my home. Written with acidic humor and sparing no details, the post ended with a question. When did we decide that older people no longer deserve to be the protagonists of their own lives? I published the text without high expectations. Maybe a few friends from the book club would see it. Maybe my neighbor Clotilde, who always loved gossip, would be interested. What I didn't expect was to wake up the next day to hundreds of comments. Women my age sharing similar stories. Daughters-in-law apologizing for behavior similar to Patricia's. Sons promising to visit their mothers more often. Young people thanking me for reminding them to value their grandparents. Among the comments, one caught my attention. "Mom, we need to talk. Please call me." It was from Richard. My heart raced. I called, of course. A mother is always a mother, no matter the age or circumstances. He answered on the first ring, as if he had been anxiously waiting. "Mom," he said, his voice choked up. "I read your post. I didn't realize—" "What, son?" "How we were treating you, how I was treating you, as if you were a burden, an obstacle, as if your house was ours to change, as if your life was less important than ours." Silence. I took a deep breath, feeling a lump in my throat. "Patricia and I separated," he continued. "It wasn't just because of this, of course. There were other problems. But your post made me see a pattern of behavior I was ignoring. The way she treated you was the same way she was starting to treat me." More silence. This time, it was he who took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry, Mum, really sorry. You raised me to be better than this." We scheduled lunch for the following Sunday. I prepared all his favorite dishes, just like I did when he was a child. When he arrived, I noticed he had lost weight. He had deep circles under his eyes and a tired look that didn't match his 42 years. During lunch, he told me everything. How Patricia had gradually taken control of every aspect of his life, how his wardrobe had been completely replaced, how his longtime friends had been pushed away for being energetically incompatible, how even his job as an engineer had been criticized for not being influential enough. "What you wrote about being made invisible, it happened to me too. I just didn't realize it because it was more subtle, or maybe because I didn't want to. See?" When we finished eating, he helped me wash the dishes. something he hadn't done since he was a teenager. As he dried the plates, he looked at me with an expression that mixed shame and admiration. "How did you do it, Mom? How did you have the courage to kick us out, to stand up for yourself, to write about it publicly?" I thought for a few seconds before answering. When I turned 70, I realized I had two options: slowly disappear, accepting the role of a harmless old lady grateful for any attention, or assume that I am still very much alive with desires, opinions, and the right to be respected. I chose the second option. 3 months after that lunch, my blog had over 50,000 followers. I received invitations to give talks, participate in podcasts, and even write a book. Richard started visiting my house regularly again, now with a genuine respect that went beyond filial obligation, not because I was his girlfriend's mother, but because I was a person with ideas and stories worth hearing. My friends from the book club became co-authors of the blog, each bringing her unique perspective on aging with dignity and full of spunk. Yes, I use that expression deliberately, because ladies can be irreverent too. And my house? It still has the cast iron pans on the stove, the spices in alphabetical order, and the embroidered towels in the bathrooms. But now it also has a makeshift office where I record weekly podcasts. It has a new bookshelf with books on feminism in old age. It has a photo mural that includes not only the past with my husband and son, but also the present with my new friends and activities. Have you ever heard that you can't teach an old dog new tricks? What nonsense. At 72, I learned to create a blog, use social media, record podcasts, teach creative writing workshops, and most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to become the heroine of your own story. If you're listening to me now and you're over 60, I want you to know, your voice matters, your choices matter, your dignity has no expiration date. And if anyone, son, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandchild, doctor, salesperson, tries to make you feel like a burden or a relic, remember, you are not a vintage decorative object. You are a complete person with the right to take up space and be respected in it. And if you're listening and you're young, remember, one day, if you're lucky, you'll be old too. The respect you sow today is what you will reap tomorrow. As for me, I still have my coffee on the porch every morning. I still use sugar, thank you. I still talk to the plants, and I still leave the TV remote exactly where I want it. Small freedoms that, added up, constitute the silent revolution of refusing to disappear. Oh, and that superfood processor Patricia left behind. I gave it to my neighbor Clotilde, who turned it into a pot for her ferns. An excellent metaphor, don't you think? Life begins at 70, when you finally learn to tell someone off with elegance, everything that no longer serves you. You can't. Imagine the liberating feeling of realizing that, after decades living for others, for husbands, for children, for grandchildren, for society, you can finally live for yourself. It's like escaping a slow-motion prison and discovering that the world outside is much more colorful than you were led to believe. With every wrinkle that appears in the mirror, and believe me, I observe them daily with a mix of awe and pride, I think, this one is from when I faced my husband's death without collapsing. This other one, when I paid for Richard's college working 2 jobs. This one here, the deepest one, when I told my daughter-in-law and son to find somewhere else to live. My wrinkles are my medals of honor. I won't hide them with miracle creams or cosmetic procedures. They remind me that I survived, that I persisted, that I existed intensely. Yesterday, a young reporter asked me, "Helen, what's the secret to having your energy and clarity at 72? I answered without hesitation, "The secret, my dear, is to understand that there is no secret at all. Just the courage to be exactly who you are, without asking permission or apologizing." She seemed disappointed with the answer. Perhaps she expected a tip about superfoods or a miraculous exercise routine, but the truth rarely fits into inspirational hashtags or easy-to-swallow pills. The truth is that aging is a privilege denied to many. The truth is that each decade brings its own battles to fight and its own treasures to discover. The truth is that at 72, I learned that the most important revolution begins within our own home, when we decide which invasions we will allow and which boundaries we will keep intact. And if you're wondering, but what about Richard? How is your relationship with him now? Know that he has dinner here every Sunday, bringing dessert and taking his own dishes to the sink without me needing to ask. Small victories that, added up, build a peace I never thought possible. Poor Patricia, I heard she abandoned her digital influencer career and now works for an NGO that supports vulnerable seniors. Ironic, perhaps? Redemptive? Possibly. My forgiveness, she already has, not because she deserved it, but because I realized that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. This year, I will turn 73. I plan to get a tattoo to celebrate. Something small on the inside of my wrist, where I can see it every day, the word protagonist, to remind me that I will never again be a supporting character in my own story. If there's one lesson I'd like to leave for whoever is listening, it's this. It's never too late to say enough. It's never too late to redraw the boundaries of your emotional, physical, and spiritual territory. It's never too late to discover that the voice that was silenced for decades can still roar when necessary. And if you're thinking, but I don't have your courage, Helen, let me tell you a secret. I didn't either. Courage isn't something you're born with. It's something you discover when there's no other alternative. That's how it was for me. That's how it was for Margaret, Dorothy, Josephine, and Odette, my late blooming revolutionary companions. That's how it will be for you when your time comes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a podcast to record and a pound cake in the oven. After all, revolutionaries need an afternoon snack too. Oh, and if you see my daughter-in-law out there, my ex-daughter-in-law to be precise, tell her the coffee is still on. Some stories deserve a better epilogue than the one we wrote in the heat of the moment. Life is too short to hold grudges, but too long to tolerate disrespect. It's in that delicate balance that I've learned to dance in my 70s. And as my late grandmother would say, when in doubt between swallowing bitter pills or spitting out truths, choose the truths. They are harder to digest at the moment, but they don't cause indigestion later. Wise words from a woman who never had the chance to write her own stories, but who planted in me the seed of defiance that bloomed late. For her, for me, for all of us who were taught to smile and accept, the grey hair revolution is just beginning. And, let me tell you, it's a silent revolution but a relentless one. With the smell of homemade cake, the taste of freshly brewed coffee, and the strength of women who have lived long enough to fear nothing and no one anymore. Not even daughters-in-law, with superfood processors.